Chapter 14. Interview. Catering to Everyone. Meike, M-E-I-K-E, they, them, is a researcher with an interdisciplinary background in intelligence analysis, government service, and diversity consulting. Their fascination with the impact of storytelling on human behavior drives their relentless curiosity. Their biggest passion is queer and transgender inclusion in research design. Learn more at meike.info. Debbie, what is your definition of customer centricity? May, when I talk about customer focus, what I'm thinking about is, how can I serve the person who is least served by society? If I can cater to that one person, everything else is going to fall into line. I'm thinking usually of a Black trans woman who is also disabled and is non-neurotypical, maybe has some learning disabilities, all these things that we would say are edge cases in our society. If I can cater to this one person, then everyone else will be served. I think that also comes from both my personal experience as a queer non-binary person and also as someone who's done a lot of work in the disability space and the accessibility space. Try to find the edge cases, cater to them, and everyone else will be catered to as well. It's the easiest solution. Debbie, how do we ensure our leaders, teams, and companies aren't just falling into lazy stereotypes, like a Black person needs this and a trans person needs this? May, everything is on a case-by-case basis, but there are themes that are easy for us to follow. That's why our brains automatically go to them. A lot of people think of trans people, and the first thing they might think of is pronouns or bathroom access. Both of those are really important, obviously, but there are other things that they might not think about, like medical access. I'm doing a case study on dating apps for non-binary people. Almost 70% of dating apps don't allow me to sign up because I have to put down either man or woman before I even sign up for the service. You're not understanding your audience. Non-binary people, like me, date. Surprising, I know. I am a real human being who's living out in the world. What are my needs, my wants? They're usually going to be the same as anybody else. I want stable housing. I want access to food, healthcare, and access to the restroom. I want people to respect me and who I am and how I identify. Go to that first rather than stereotypes. Debbie, I've noticed that there is some backlash from some communities, especially more marginalized communities, around the word empathy. A lot of times when people say, we're empathizing with users, there are Black people, people of color, LGBTQIA+, and others who are saying, are you sure you're really seeing my world through my eyes? May, it definitely comes off as disingenuous. It's sort of similar to what we call in the trans community the "you are so brave" narrative. Whenever I tell people about my story, they're like, oh, you're so brave. No, my life is hard. That's not me being brave. It's me figuring out how to live within the constraints that I have in society. When we talk about empathy, I would rather have someone who's in the trenches with us, who's there to be an ally. Allyship is not just, I'm an ally. Are you out there actively advocating for my rights? When I get misgendered, do you stand up and say, hey, you misgendered them and we need to correct that? Are you the person who is advocating for gender-inclusive restrooms at every single place you work, whether or not you need them? There are lots of different things that you can do to be empathetic rather than just saying you're empathetic. Words are really easy. Actions are much harder. You can never label yourself an ally. Seek out people who are in that community and ask, how can I help you personally? They will label you as an ally if you do a good job. It's a badge of honor that you should wear, but you have to earn it. You can't just say, I'm empathetic, I'm an ally. I can always tell when someone's trying, and I think that's way more important than not trying and just being a jerk. I've had some people who get tangled up in phrasing and then they just don't say anything. It's much better to just say something and be wrong because then you can learn from it rather than not saying anything and keeping inside the potential wrong assumption that you're making. Say it and then say, "Hey, I think I might be wrong. Can you help me out here?" It could be an educational lesson. Debbie. A place that I worked at a few years ago created groups like one for Black people, one for LGBTQ, etc. I felt like I was on the outside of those. Not that I should be on the inside of those since I don't qualify for those groups. But how do we give people those spaces and allow others to better understand those groups and identities? May. Over here in America, those are employee resource groups. This is always complicated. I've met a lot of self-proclaimed allies who want to be in the LGBTQIA+ group who are not LGBT. That's always complicated because the A part of the acronym includes allies. But people who are allies take up space in these kinds of groups that are meant for people to be 100% comfortable and 100% who they are. These groups are to be able to talk about microaggressions, discrimination, or just daily life and not have to worry about having to explain yourself or being judged. When we talk about people outside of those groups wanting to be a part of these groups, what is another way we can do that? Connect with the leader of this group and ask them for any recommendations, maybe people who would be willing to hang out with others for lunch or coffee. These groups are private and the resources might not be shared externally just for privacy's sake. That's a much better approach than saying, "I want to be included in the group because I want to be an ally," because it's the taking up space issue. As a white person, I would love to help contribute my own perspective to a group about Asian American and Pacific Islanders because I did a lot of my studies around Chinese culture. I feel like I have a lot to say there, but I also need to recognize that while my insight might be interesting to people in the group, is it necessary? Probably not. These people know way more about being Asian or Pacific Islander than I could ever know as my little white self from Texas. Even though I feel like I have a lot to say, it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to say it. We should ask how we can support those groups, monetarily or physically showing up. That and shows of allyship are more than just saying, "I want to be included." Debbie. And that's the route I've taken. I've gone to the leaders of the group and said, "Look, I know I'm not in your group, but I want to support your group, and if there's something you think I can do to express that support, let me know." I thought about this when I attended a business meeting and some of the HR staff had their rainbow shirts and their water cups with "I Rainbow Heart Company." They all had their rainbow apparel on. My gut reaction was, this is performative. How can we distinguish between performative rainbows and doing the right things for our marginalized or misunderstood communities? May. It's always going to be performative until something is done. The rainbow sticker should be the last step. It's not the first step. You should have already done all the steps beforehand. You should be known as an LGBT-friendly and inclusive company before you even consider making your Facebook logo a rainbow. If you're in Silicon Valley and you've changed your company logo to a rainbow, I'm not interested in that, especially if you change it on June 1st, just Pride Month. This is very performative. Are you making a statement that's like, "We support the LGBTQIA+ community," and not actually doing anything? For example, Disney says they support the queer community, but then Disney supported a Florida ban on education on queer topics. Disney claimed they got a personal reassurance from the governor that it wouldn't hurt queer people. Oh, now that is a very clear statement that you have no idea what you're talking about. Now Disney is walking back this statement, but they've lost credibility with the queer community. There will be huge repercussions for that, like the financial and other repercussions J.K. Rowling has been facing from being anti-trans. Be aware that when your company says something, you have to actually mean it. My community is very loyal, but we're also understanding of and loyal to our own. If you're not going to treat us right, we're not going to be doing any business with you. Debbie, I remember when the Barilla Pasta CEO said he was for traditional marriage and everyone boycotted him. He had to walk it back within a week, probably because someone saw the sales numbers plummet. May, exactly. I think people don't understand how intense, loyal, and amazing the LGBT customer base is. I know entire companies that are built exclusively on LGBT customers. One of them that I'm really a big fan of is Tomboy. Weblink, tomboyx.com. They specifically make underwear for LGBT customers, a very niche market, but they specifically cater to transmasculine people like me who have a different body type and have other concerns with finding underwear that is comfortable. Sizes go up to 5XL and they go super small as well. You can build an entire business just on transmasculine people. Imagine how much you could do being actually supportive of the entire LGBT community. We spread the word around. The whole reason Tomboy is doing so well is because everyone in the trans community spread the word about it. We talk about it. We talk about it on social media, and I recommend this company at almost every single talk I do because they're a great company. Word spreads fast. If you want to get good customers, you need to treat them right. Debbie, what are some things we can look out for around not living up to our own values or not following through on some of our glossy statements? May, 2 things come to mind. First is how easy it is for an employee to change their name in your system. It sounds very simple, but name changes are one of the most difficult issues that trans people face specifically. I've been with a health insurance company for 2 years, and they still haven't fully changed my name. Some things are in my previous legal name, and some things are in my current legal name. There are some prescriptions I can't pick up without bringing in my official court documents. Can you change your email? Can you change your chat logs? Is your insurance easy to change over? Ask your IT person how easy it is to change an employee's name in the system. If it's not easy, that should be the first thing that you deal with. It's such a basic thing, especially as someone who chose my own name, one that's incredibly important and meaningful to me. I want to make sure that people use the correct name for me. I don't want a constant reminder at the bottom of my video chat window of my incorrect name. Another one is checking in with your healthcare procedures and coverage to check specifically for trans people who want to transition. There are a lot of companies that specifically market on, we have a trans-inclusive policy and we will cover all of your surgeries if you come work for our company. That's a huge incentive because my top surgery without insurance cost $35,000. Also, a company's dress code is important. A lot of people who are in the queer community specifically express themselves through the way that they dress. If your company says, you are a woman, so you're not allowed to wear masculine clothes, that obviously is gender discrimination and I would argue LGBT discrimination. Debbie, that makes me think about working for European companies. As an American, it's been interesting to see that the maternity leave in the UK is 1 year. When I worked for a German company, some new dads took 1 month of paternity leave. Note, I learned after the interview that Germany does allow longer paternity leave, but the maximum monthly salary is quite low, so many people opt for shorter leave. May is responding to my original statement that German dads get a month of paternity leave. May, if I qualify as the father, do I only get 1 month off? If I carry the baby, I get a year off. That's a misunderstanding of how gender works. What if the woman in a relationship is the main earner? Maybe she wants to take 1 month off and then get back to work. Maybe the dad wants to take care of the child the whole time. Plus, assumptions about straight relationships, and assumptions that trans people don't exist. Why can't we just have parental leave? Do we have to make rules because we think people don't know how to take care of themselves? Or they won't know how to act responsibly within the work environment that they're in? I think that's an infantilization of our employees. You hired them for a reason. They're competent people. We need to trust them to be able to do good work, know when it's appropriate to take time off, and when it's appropriate to come back. Debbie, this might be a little controversial, but I'm saying it anyway. So many companies create a DEI job, but we're not following through on any of that to the rest of the organization. We announce our Black or gay or disabled head of diversity, but is that person empowered to make changes and clean up the culture? May, it's so true. It's really frustrating. I'm very tired of people talking the talk and not walking the walk. Companies say they're ready to be diverse and inclusive when they are not ready. They think that you can have a PowerPoint about racism and racism will disappear. That's not how it works. You have to actually do the work. You have to deconstruct racism in your own life, personally as well as professionally. Companies say they're ready for that, and they're not. They're looking for that one PowerPoint to check off things for their stakeholders or the board of directors, and then they'll be good. Often, they hire a DEI person who is really good at PowerPoints or knows how to talk about it, but doesn't know how to implement it, isn't willing to, or isn't empowered to. If we're worried about stakeholders or the board of directors, I call it catering to white feelings. This frustrates me because I understand where it's coming from. In some ways, I do the same thing for people who are not queer. I will cater and make things simpler for people who are not queer so they can understand. But that also does you a disservice. It's assuming that you can't understand these complicated subjects. You have to hire and look for people who are willing to push you and challenge you. You have to accept that challenge and, even when it's hard, ask, how can we do more than that? How can I go the extra mile? Not just the metrics or optics of, we hired one more Black person on our team. Ask how we can completely redo our entire hiring system to be more inclusive of all of the people that we can think of. How can we reach out to these people? Can we hire consultants to make sure that we're covering all the bases? Maybe we have a Black woman in a DEI role, which is great, but maybe she's not LGBT. Let's hire a consultant or consult with someone who's LGBT so they could provide additional support here. Recognize your weaknesses and where you have gaps. Fill them as best as you can or outsource when you can't do that. You can't be like, all right, what points of diversity does this person have? They're a human being, and this would be very degrading. You need to see them as a whole person. The points of diversity are just ways that make them more interesting or more fun to be around because you get that diverse opinion and perspective. Debbie, what can a company do if they wish they were more ready and not there yet? May, the first thing is that you need to have a leader who is committed, but sometimes the leadership comes last in that process. That's a mistake because you need to have someone at the forefront who has the power and the money to hire the people, get things moving, and make decisions. You need the decision maker to be the first hire so they can start strategizing this. Be open in communication. Hey, we are on this diversity and inclusion journey and we are not there yet. We want people to feel like they can fail and make mistakes in our environment, recover from that, and be supported in that journey. When we talk about making culture change, you need to create an environment where mistakes are okay, if not encouraged. However, if people are not going where the company is going, they will leave. If someone doesn't like the company being anti-racist, they might choose to leave. If they are racist and they don't seem to want to change or leave, we need to address that. Provide that room for growth, but also be clear on the boundaries. We are moving in this direction, and we expect you to move in this direction with us. If you are not willing to make a personal and professional change toward diversity and inclusion, then you're probably not going to be a good match for this company. You can always work for someone that aligns with your needs and values. Don't make assumptions that everyone should cater to you if your values don't match the company's. Debbie. Companies love numbers and metrics and KPIs and OKRs. Part of me says, great, make some DEI metrics. And then the other part of me says, oh my God, don't make DEI metrics. This is not about counting gay or black people. May, it doesn't matter how many you have. It matters how they feel. Are these people feeling comfortable? Are they experiencing microaggressions? Are they thinking about quitting? Are they thinking about getting a promotion but feel like they don't have access to that because of their identity? There are way more important qualitative and quantitative things that you can measure. You could send out a survey asking anonymously how likely you are to leave your job in the next 6 months. Can you describe the reason for that? Are you happy? Are you experiencing microaggressions? Then connect that data like, are you gay or queer? Doing the metrics based on that is much more telling. Then you can say, it looks like all of our gay employees are likely to leave in the next 6 months. That tells me a lot more than, I have 6 gay employees. It says, I have these gay employees and none of them are happy. Then I can start making these correlations rather than working from percentages and then assumptions about entire groups of people. Talk about stereotypes. It's also very telling if you have 6 gay people, but they're all like, I love this company, I'm not planning on leaving, and I really enjoy the environment here. Then the story is, it looks like we're pretty gay inclusive, but what about our BIPOC employees? Are they feeling the same way? What if there is an interaction where someone is black and also trans? That impacts the analysis that we're talking about. Debbie, anything else on your mind related to customer centricity or employee centricity that we didn't touch on? May, yes, a mistake a lot of people make is they assume that the professional is different than the personal. If I notice that you're surrounded by very diverse people at your workplace, but in your personal life you are not, that is a red flag for me. You also need to reach out and make personal connections that are diverse and find people that challenge you. Also, identities are important, but they aren't the whole person. I would rather that someone message me on LinkedIn saying they liked a talk I did or asking me about my interest in video games or my recommendations for places to see in San Diego. That's a much more interesting opener than, what does it mean that you're transgender? I've literally received messages like that before. You wouldn't go up to a woman and ask, what does it feel like to be a woman? Debbie, as soon as you're thinking, I have a trans friend, or I have a black friend, you're doing it wrong. May, yeah, exactly. I know a lot of people who may think we are friends, but I do not consider you a friend. I see you as an acquaintance who likes to use me as an excuse for saying, I have met a trans person. It's isolating and alienating because you don't actually care about me, you care about my identity. It's strange how far we've come, and there's so much farther we have to go.